There is a beehive in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania that has been in continuous occupation since 1931. Not the same physical hive box, the same genetic line, the same colony lineage, split and requeened and managed across 93 years by the same family. The grandmother captured the original swarm from a hollow oak on the property in the spring of 1931. And now their great-grandchildren are adding honey to the family's root cellar this October from the descendants of that swarm. The family has not purchased honey, beeswax, candles, lip balm, wood polish, leather conditioner, wound salve, or cough syrup in 93 years. Every one of those products comes from 2 hives on the south side of the orchard, at a combined annual operating cost of approximately $0. The average American household spends approximately $180 per year on honey alone. Over 50 years, that is $9,000. That does not include beeswax products purchased separately. Commercial candles, wood polish, lip balm, and salves are often sold at premium prices. A single strong beehive produces 8 to 12 pounds of beeswax per year as a byproduct of honey production. That wax makes 60 standard taper candles, or a year's supply of beeswax products most households use. The hive also pollinates every fruit tree and vegetable plant on the property at no additional cost. This increases food production yields by 15 to 30% across every wind-pollinated and insect-pollinated crop simultaneously. This video is about bees, not in the way popular media discusses beekeeping, as a hobby for people with time and money. It is an integrated production system the Amish have maintained as a core resource since before the United States existed. This system produces more value per square foot of land occupied than any other element of the property. The modern agricultural system has spent 60 years destroying this through pesticide use, habitat destruction, and industrial monoculture farming. These practices make the agricultural landscape incompatible with colony health. The commercial honeybee colony collapse disorder crisis beginning in 2006 is not a mystery of unknown origin. It is the consequence of 60 years of prioritizing short-term yield over the ecological relationships that make yield possible. The bees are dying because the system that depends on them has made the landscape incompatible with their survival. Neonicotinoid pesticides, the primary driver of colony collapse, are systemic pesticides applied to seeds before planting. They are taken up by the plant's vascular system, meaning they are present in the pollen and nectar that bees collect. The European Food Safety Authority concluded in 2018 that major neonicotinoids pose unacceptable risk to bees, leading to a ban. The United States EPA has not banned them because agricultural chemical manufacturers have sufficient regulatory influence to prevent it. The Lancaster County family's bees are not dying. They have not experienced colony collapse disorder because they are not foraging on treated crops. Their bees forage on the family's own organic garden, their clover-rich pasture, and their apple orchard. The family maintains unmowed field margins to provide continuous forage from early spring through late fall. The bees are healthy because the landscape they forage in is healthy, managed without synthetic pesticides or fertilizers. The health of the bees is not separate from the health of the soil and the plants. It is the same health expressed in a different organism. Let me start with what a beehive actually produces. Because most people who have considered keeping bees think primarily of honey. Honey is only one of 7 distinct products that a well-managed hive produces, each with distinct applications and distinct economic value. Honey, the primary product. A strong hive in a good forage environment produces 60 to 100 pounds of surplus honey per year. The Lancaster County family harvests 60 to 80 pounds per year from their 2 hives, after the colony has reserved enough for winter survival. At current retail prices, this represents $600 to $1,600 in annual value. The family consumes it as sweetener and uses it as medicine. They apply it to burns and store surplus in the root cellar where it will remain stable indefinitely, a pattern of self-sufficiency. I want to put honey value in the context of the sugar industry, which displaced honey through regulatory and commercial pressure. Before the late 19th century, honey was the primary sweetener. The beehive was as standard a piece of farm infrastructure as the root cellar. The sugar industry displaced honey through price. By 1900, refined cane sugar was cheaper per unit of sweetness than honey from managed hives. The price differential was maintained through plantation-scale production in tropical regions and industrial refinery efficiency. The health consequence was inadequately discussed. Refined sugar has a glycemic index of 65, while raw honey is approximately 50. Raw honey contains enzymes and antioxidants that refined sugar lacks because refining removes every biological compound from the sucrose. The Lancaster County family hasn't purchased refined sugar in decades. Their sweetener is honey. Their baking and fermentation use honey. It goes from frame to filter cloth to jar without any heat treatment that would destroy its enzyme content or biological complexity. The mead tradition completes the honey economy. The family ferments excess honey into wine, a practice used by their ancestors. This mead stores indefinitely and provides a trade good within the community that has value without involving any commercial transaction. It is not sold. It is shared. And the sharing builds the relationships that the community's invisible economic infrastructure runs on. Beeswax, the byproduct that most beekeepers treat as secondary, but that the Lancaster County family treats as equally important as the honey. Each pound of honey produced requires approximately 8 to 10 pounds of beeswax for the comb construction that stores it. The harvesting process recovers the wax cappings from the honey cells as a byproduct of honey extraction. A hive producing 60 pounds of honey surplus yields approximately 6 to 8 pounds of recoverable beeswax annually after the cappings are melted and filtered. 6 to 8 pounds of beeswax is enough to make 40 taper candles, a year's supply of lip balm and hand salve for the family, enough wood polish for all the wooden furniture and tool handles on the property, and the cheese wax used to coat the family's aged hard cheeses. The commercial equivalents of these products purchased separately would cost the family approximately $150 to $200 per year. The beeswax to make them is a byproduct of the honey extraction that the family was performing anyway. Propolis, the third product. Bees collect resinous plant material, primarily from conifer buds and poplar bark, and process it into propolis, a sticky antimicrobial compound they use to seal gaps in the hive and coat the hive interior to prevent microbial growth. Propolis has been used as an antimicrobial and wound-healing agent in traditional medicine since ancient Egypt. Modern research has documented its antimicrobial, antiviral, antifungal, and anti-inflammatory properties, with mechanisms of action that are well characterized. The Lancaster County family scrapes propolis from their hive boxes during routine inspections and dissolves it in food-grade alcohol to make a tincture that serves as their primary topical antimicrobial for minor wounds, mouth sores, and throat irritation. A commercial propolis tincture costs approximately $15 to $25 per small bottle. The family produces it from material that accumulates as a byproduct, pollen. Bees carry pollen from flowers to the hive as a protein source for brood rearing. A pollen trap installed at the hive entrance captures a portion of this pollen as the bees pass through. Fresh bee pollen is a complete protein source with a diverse amino acid profile, significant B vitamin content, and antioxidant compounds. The Lancaster County family does not use pollen traps because they prefer to maximize colony health and minimize any reduction in pollen available. But the option exists for harvesting this product, and the commercial value of fresh local bee pollen runs approximately $20 to $30 per pound. Royal jelly, the specialized food that worker bees produce to feed the queen and developing queen larvae. The Lancaster County family does not harvest it commercially because the quantities available from a two-hive operation are minimal. Venom, bee venom therapy, for conditions including arthritis and nerve pain, is practiced in traditional medicine across multiple cultures. The Lancaster County family uses it informally, accepting the occasional sting during hive management as a matter of course rather than avoiding it. Several family members have noted that chronic joint pain improved significantly in the years after they began regular beekeeping. The observations are consistent across multiple traditional cultures that have maintained close relationships with bees over centuries. Pollination. The seventh product and the most economically significant for the farm system as a whole, though it is never harvested in the conventional sense. The family's two hives provide pollination services to the orchard, the garden, the berry patches, and the surrounding neighborhood through the colony's foraging activity. Apple yields in orchards with adequate pollinator populations are 15 to 25% higher than in orchards with poor pollinator populations. Squash, cucumber, and melon yields are even more pollinator dependent, with inadequate pollination resulting in misshapen fruits and significantly reduced yields. Experienced gardeners can attest to the dramatic difference in yields between before and after colony establishment. The family practices what they call minimal intervention management. They inspect each hive approximately once per month during the active season. Each inspection assesses colony population, brood pattern, honey stores, and queen presence. The inspections are brief and focused, disturbing the bees as little as possible. The family does not treat their bees with synthetic miticides. Varroa destructor, the primary driver of losses, is managed through the colony's own hygienic behavior. They use oxalic acid, a naturally occurring compound found in plants like garden vegetables, which kills mites without leaving residues in honey or wax. Hygienic bees detect and remove mite-infested pupae from the comb. This trait is genetically heritable and selected for across 4 generations of survivor stock. The family has been doing this selection since their grandmother captured the original swarm in 1931, focusing on healthy, locally adapted colonies. Studies from Gotland Island in Sweden showed that isolated feral bee populations could develop Varroa resistance through natural selection without chemical intervention. Commercial queen production selects for maximum honey production. The Lancaster County selection has been for long-term survival in a minimally managed system. Over 4 generations of selection, they produce different bees. Traits that prioritize long-term health ensure the farm system thrives for years to come. The forage landscape management is the second piece. The family maintains a continuous forage calendar that begins with the early spring bulbs. These are planted specifically to provide pollen and nectar when the colony needs to build population rapidly before the main honey flow. Snowdrops and crocuses in March, dandelions in April, which the family does not mow because they are one of the most valuable early season sources. Fruit blossoms in May. White clover in the pasture from June through August. Buckwheat as a late-season cover crop providing significant flow in August. Goldenrod and aster along the field margins through September and October allow the colony to build winter stores from mineral-rich nectar. This forage calendar was not designed by an apiculturist. It was designed by a family that paid attention over 4 generations. They noted which plants produced the strongest colonies going into winter, and which gaps in the calendar corresponded to colony stress. The knowledge is 93 years of direct observation. No apiculture textbook or extension service publication can replicate that depth. Now I want to tell you about the commercial beekeeping industry's relationship with the colony collapse crisis. The commercial pollination industry in the United States is a $650 million annual market. California almond orchards, which require 1.8 million colonies for their annual bloom, draw operations from every state in the country. The bees spend weeks surrounded by a single crop that provides no nutritional diversity and is treated with fungicides and agrochemicals. After the almond bloom, they may move to Florida citrus, then to Maine blueberries. Their diet and stress accumulate across a national migration. The Lancaster County family's bees do not migrate. They forage a 1 to 2 mile radius from the hive throughout their entire lives. They eat diverse pollen from dozens of plant species. They are never exposed to the pesticide loads of industrial monoculture farming. The health difference is not due to better technique, it is due to the conditions. Commercial beekeeping requires bees to thrive where they cannot. The industry calls it a crisis of unknown origin and funds research on genetics rather than addressing the monoculture landscape that kills them. The EPA's response to the neonicotinoid evidence has followed exactly the pattern documented in every other regulatory context in this series. The pesticide manufacturers who produce neonicotinoids are registered with the EPA, and participate extensively in the regulatory comment process that shapes decisions. When the EPA reviewed clothianidin, a neonicotinoid heavily associated with bee toxicity, after a leaked internal memo from Bayer Crop Science, the process took 7 years. During those 7 years, clothianidin remained fully registered for use on corn and other major crops. The scientific evidence that neonicotinoids pose unacceptable risk to bees, which the EU acted on in 2018, has been acknowledged by the EPA's own staff. Yet the US response is different, because the chemical industry has the resources to ensure the regulatory process protects its market while appearing serious. The Lancaster County family does not farm the neonicotinoid landscape. They farm the landscape they manage. Their landscape supports bees that are healthy, productive, and genetically adapted to their specific environment, becoming more valuable with every passing generation. Now I want to give you the complete economic picture of 2 hives on a quarter-acre property over 50 years. Initial setup for 2 hives, including boards, bodies, supers, frames, smoker, hive tool, and bee suit costs approximately $300 to $500. A nucleus colony or a package of bees costs $150 to $200 per hive. Total initial investment including bees, $600 to $900. Annual operating costs. Oxalic acid for treatment and frame replacement total about $35 to $45 per year. Annual production value. 120 pounds of honey at $12 per pound is $1,240. Beeswax and pollination value bring the total to $1,840. 50-year total production value is nearly $90,000 against a total investment of $3,000. That is a net value of over $80,000. This calculation is based on standard productivity from the University of Georgia Bee Lab and the Honey Bee Health Coalition's data. The Lancaster County family has been running this calculation in practice for 93 years, recorded in their family book entries. Their calculation includes root cellar honey, beeswax candles for winter evenings, and salve in the medicine cabinet, and the mead aging in the cellar for a year that will be shared at the community gathering next spring. Drop your state in the comments and tell me whether you have space and regulatory clearance for 1 or 2 beehives on your property. In many urban jurisdictions, rooftop beekeeping is legal and practiced by thousands who produce honey of exceptional quality and flavor complexity. The grandmother who caught the swarm in 1931 probably did not imagine her descendants would still be managing the same genetic line in 2024. She just knew the swarm was in the oak and the timing was right. She was right about what her descendants were right about every generation. The land provides. The relationship is worth maintaining. The honey fills the root cellar. The wax makes the candles. The bees pollinate the orchard. 1 swarm from 1 oak in 1931. 93 years later, it is still producing everything the family needs from what the land already provides. The oak is still there, so is the swarm. And the family book has 93 years of entries about what the bees were doing. That is knowledge the $650 million commercial industry cannot produce and has never needed to for the family because they never stopped the relationship. Start with 1 hive. This spring, the bees will do the rest.